Hey guys, Jim here. We're going to take a look today at the Ferrum Forge Septer. Now, before you go off and start making comments before watching the video, I did not misspell Septer in the title. There's a specific reason why it's being purposefully misspelled, and I'll get to that in just a few minutes. Now, those of you familiar with my channel are very familiar with Ferrum Forge, which is Elliot Williamson and his brother Chris. They are exceptionally talented knife makers, and they have really focused heavily in the past few years on mid-tech knives, such as the Septer that you see before you. However, when you go back into their history, they were all about handmade, full-on custom knives with many, many years worth of weight. Now, before I get into that story, I do want to tell you that I am coordinating the upload of this video to be within a day or two of the release of this knife on mass drop. Now, these were available directly from Ferrum Forge's website and through various dealers. However, they are down to the last of the inventory. They sent those over to mass drop. That means the more people that go in, click on it, and buy it, to commit to make that purchase, the more people that do that, the lower the price goes. I don't know how low the price is going to go in the end, but it will be lower than it's ever been sold before by any other prominent dealer. So this is a big deal. What's not big, however, is the size. That is a 3.04 inch CPM 20 CV blade. And I gotta tell you, even though it is a teeny tiny little knife, it is a wonderful, wonderful little frame lock. Now, before I get off into the knife too much, I did want to get those specifics out there and let you know where you can buy it. But let's talk about Ferrum Forge for a moment. If you go back into the history of Ferrum Forge, and this was really at one point just Elliot himself being a custom knife maker. Not only was he a custom knife maker, but he was one of the very few that wouldn't just have you select among the models he was currently making, but you could send him a childlike scribble on the backside of a napkin and he would make that knife come to life. So he is one of the very few full-on, true, full custom knife makers that are still in existence. Now, there's nothing wrong with the way knife makers run their businesses these days. They have to form some sort of routine, I suppose, in order to be able to get enough knives out there for enough people. Because, again, hand making a knife is a very slow process. So, generally there's going to be a list of models or only one or two models available, maybe a small list of the material choices you can make, and they will custom make that knife. That doesn't mean it's custom tailored to you. The custom knife world is a little bit weird. Custom means something a little bit different in the knife world than it does in other industries. It's not typically going to be a bespoke item, although sometimes it can be. Well, Elliot got to the point where his books were so full that people were complaining that it was taking years and years and years to get their knives. Now, Elliot's the kind of guy, full transparency, full disclosure, would tell people, hey, I'm not going to be able to get to your knife for 2 more years because I have, X amount of knives ahead of you. But still, you know how internet whiners like to be. So what he decided to do was cut back some of the time he spends on making custom knives and offer mid-techs. And he was doing this when mid-tech was still fairly new to most of the tactical folder world. And what he did was he released a special knife called the Pretium, and this is one of them. He made 100, which was far too large of a run and took him a very long time to do. Mine is number 100. Now, mine looks nothing like any other Pretium that exists, so this is a really, really bad example. But this was made as a one-off custom for me. It doesn't even have a Pretium blade in it. However, this is the model that really started it all. And people realized, hey, I can get one hell of a great knife that looks and feels every bit custom. And those were like $550 if I recall. Mine was a lot more because of all the extra work, but it taught Elliot that people are fine with getting a customized mid-tech instead of waiting forever to get a full custom knife. So what he started doing was making run after run after run after run of insanely awesome mid-tech knives and he would do some that were very, very custom. Even the most basic version still had a lot of his handwork in it. And as time evolved, he started doing collaborations. One particular collaboration you guys might recognize was with Gavco, yes, on the Mako. They call this the Furco because it was half Ferrum Forge and half Gavco on the Mako design. Mine, again, is a one-off variation. I was talking with Elliot one day and said, hey, nobody really makes any Star Wars themed knives. I'd really like something in a Star Wars theme. Yes, this was before people started making Star Wars themed knives. Wonder where they got the inspiration from. So I said, I really want something styled after Boba Fett, which was obviously one of my favorite characters. The bead here is actually made by a gentleman named Nati in Israel. His company name is Black Snow Customs. He now makes knives as well. And I said, I want something that's definitely Mandalorian, but I don't want it to be over the top and just have a bunch of logos on it, and we'll call it a Boba Fett knife. So what he did was he went with the theme of, this is what I would envision if Boba Fett carried a knife himself, what it would probably look like. And that's how it came out. And I've never done a video on this. It has reached enough popularity just from my Instagram posts. People already know about it. And then obviously he made my Darth Vader lightsaber knife and so on and so forth. And then the Star Wars knives really took off last year after those two. And the popularity that Elliot has seen by doing these collaborations and doing these mid-techs is pretty insane, to the point where he almost can't keep up with the demand. So what he does now is everything is in a small run. And then he'll break up that run and have different variations. Then he'll have what he calls the maker's choice, where he just decides to go buck wild, as the kids like to say. The kids still say that, right? I'm not getting that old, am I? Anyway, so he decides to go apeshit crazy and make super cool one-off things like that in each of these production runs. This is one of the more standardized variations. However, there's still a shitload of cool going on in here. First off, once again, you have that CPM 20 CV blade. It's an extremely high degree of chromium content. It is going to be very, very, very corrosion resistant. That's the main plus to this particular steel. It's basically Latrobe's version of Bowler's M390. So you have a obviously with the powder metallurgy, you've got a micro clean steel. It's very, very consistent. It's a very, very high quality steel, good for everyday cutting tasks. It'll also take on a number of different finishes. So if they wanted to do pretty much anything you can think of, it really doesn't like to be mirror polished, but aside from that, it'll do pretty much anything. So you've got a nice satin flat setup here, and your primary bevel is really, really nice stonewash. I hadn't really taken a strong look at it until I've got it here under the lens, and it's a really, really nice stonewash on there. Elliot's a big believer in making shit really, really sharp. Everything about his designs, even the way they feel in the hand, is about use more so than beauty. And he's taken a lot of hits for it. He's made a lot of knives that people have called ugly, but you put it in the hand and you go to cut with it and you realize exactly why it was designed the way that it was. You've got really nice contoured titanium scales. Let's go ahead and show you that. I shouldn't really call them scales because they're titanium slabs. It's not a scale over another material. We've got some nice mill work done here. Basic but clean and really, really nicely done. It looks very much like some sort of medieval weapon. Single standoff at the rear, anodized blue. And then you have your titanium pocket clip, also anodized blue. Basic clip. He does do fancier things, sculpted 3D clips, but again, this was to hit a lower price point. Everything about this is just really, really nicely made. It's got the chamfered edge going all the way around. It's very, very comfortable in the hand for such a small knife. You typically don't see knives this small on my channel, but I really, really, really fell in love with this thing. The action is, of course, fantastic due to the fact that he uses the Holback rolling detent. So instead of having a stationary detent ball set in there that rubs on the blade and causes friction, you have a rolling detent ball, a rolling bearing. So it reduces the friction greatly. You almost don't feel any friction whatsoever as you manipulate the blade back and forth. You have a steel lock insert so that you have a proper steel-on-steel contact that will not wear down and is far less likely to ever develop any lock stick. This is something that a lot of makers are going to, and it's a very, very important step for a titanium frame lock, especially if you plan on keeping that titanium frame lock for a long time and using it for a long time. Titanium, being a softer surface than the stainless steel it's hitting, will eventually wear down to nothing. And when that is the integral part of your frame, that means that entire side has to be replaced. If that develops to the point where it's just going way, way over to 100% lockup, then you can have lock failure. You might have lock rot because it's not contacting the surface of the blade. All these issues that can happen with a traditional titanium frame lock. Lightning fast action for both opening and closing. Just fantastic. This one actually works well both ways, whether you are a light switcher like I am or you like to push button. Either way, it's going to work very, very well for you. Has a curved flipper tab, so it's going to be very comfortable when you're using it. He has also relieved all the areas around here, so as you're disengaging the lock over and over and over, playing with your new knife, you're not contacting a sharp edge that's going to tear up your thumb. Believe it or not, that is a point to call out, because there are a lot of knife makers still to this day that leave a harsh edge there. And maybe it's just because they don't feel it. Their fingertips are dead, so they may not realize how sharp that edge is. And some just really don't give a shit. They're there to pump out a product and do it as quickly as possible, apparently. Elliot doesn't really feel that way. This one is really nicely bronzed, and he's also done a light tumble on it, so that brings out some highlights of a more golden bronze throughout. And you also get these little flecks of golden bronze that will pop out. So it's a time-consuming process. He's taking the extra step to make it a little extra nice. He has blued the pivot as well to match up with the backspacer, the standoff, as well as the clip. All around, really nicely made. The packaging you'll get will be a simple zippered pouch where you will get the dog tag as a zipper pull to let you know what series it was and what year it was made. Now, to talk about why it's spelled Septer, why it's called Septer, and why it's not spelled S-C-E-P-T. Well, the story goes, and this is very, very amusing to me, a guy had stopped by Ferrum Forge's shop and was looking around at a lot of the various prototypes that were laying around on the bench. And he scans them all up and down, and he comes to a stop on this knife, and he says, "Well, they're all a little big for my britches, except her. She's the perfect size." And that seemed to have stuck with Elliot when the guy went, "Sept her." And yes, that really is why it's called the Septer. So it takes all kinds, doesn't it? Yes, indeed it does. And I almost wonder if maybe Elliot just went with that name so he would hear me do that really horrible imitation on the video here. All around, this is a fantastic knife. It is not too flashy. It's fairly basic, but it's not a plain Jane knife. It's not just a slab-sided knife that they bronzed and sent out the door. You've got the nice milling details done in here. You've got the additional step after it's been bead blasted, after it's been bronzed, to then do the light tumble to bring out the really, really nice added color and highlight the high spots, highlight the edges. You'll see all the mill lines here going all the way through the handle. And the backside is not milled, it's very, very plain, but again, still with the same tumbling, so you get that nice gold flecking that comes through. I don't know if flecking is a real word, but we'll make it a real word now. How's that? It is, again, smaller than I typically enjoy, but there's something addictive about flipping this little knife, and that is due in part to how the detent is set. And by the way, for those that don't know, the holeback rolling detent is adjustable. That's another big plus. So if you want a lighter detent, you just simply back the detent off from that screw. Otherwise, you can make it very, very hard. And Elliot has made this one very, very hard. Yet, it's not dragging on the blade because it's rolling. So you've got a really, really smooth little knife. You know, just by comparison, a tremendously more expensive knife here in a custom. Still with the holdback rolling detent, but the way the detent is set, you know, the blade doesn't really drop free in the same way. It's still very, very smooth, but it's still not going to drop quite like that one will. Now again, that's not how you're closing your knife in real life. You're just going to simply do this, but I'm trying to give you a feel for how smooth that is without you physically holding it in your hands. So there you have it, guys. There is the Ferrum Forge Septer. As mentioned, if you're watching this video anywhere near the time that it was uploaded, then you will get the opportunity to buy one from Mastrop. It is the final quantity, and when they're gone forever. He never repeats a series. Please keep that in mind. So if this is the design that you have fallen in love with, you're now going to get the best price it's ever been, which is really awesome, and you'll be the last owners of these knives. So do enjoy. When you get it, please feel free to comment down below and let me know your thoughts. If you're one of those that bought one from Ferrum Forge or from another dealer and already own this knife, please do leave your comments down below. Am I right? Am I wrong? Am I way off in fucking left field? Is it as cool as I say it is? Well, now is your chance to find out. Read other people's comments that own this knife and maybe other Ferrum Forge knives and see for yourself. And that for me is going to do it. I'll be making more and more and more videos. Got a whole bunch of stuff to get to, so I'll catch you guys on the next video.